Sami Zayn pledges his loyalty to the bloodline as they are victorious at Survivor Series in War Games against the Brawling Brutes. Speaking of War Games, we have the results of the Women's War Games match as Team Bianca Belair goes up against Damage Control. Austin Theory is the brand new United States champion, winning the title at last night's event. Triple H gives us an update on the future of the War Games match in WWE. Controversially, Brian Kendrick is back in the company as well. And did WWE tease Tegan Nox's return to WWE? Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of WWE. And of course, we have to start off talking about Survivor Series War Games and the Bloodline victorious once again in the sinister match beyond last night at the premium live event in Boston, Massachusetts. And Sami Zayn was the center of attention going into the event, and he's the center of attention coming out of it as well. Kevin Owens had Roman Reigns all but pinned and defeated after delivering a pop-up powerbomb in the men's War Games match at Survivor Series, but just then, Sami Zayn, Owens' best friend in real life, and I guess still in storyline, proved his loyalty to the bloodline by holding the referee's arm, following which he hit a vicious low blow on KO, his friend of more than 25 years. Zayn then looked over at Roman Reigns, who nodded his head of approval of the honorary Usos' actions. Zayn followed it up with a haluva kick and asked Jey Uso to do the honors. Jey hit Owens with an Uso splash to score the pinfall victory for the bloodline. After the match, both Reigns and Jey, who earlier in the night questioned Zayn's loyalty in a backstage segment with the Tribal Chief, embraced Zayn for a hug in an emotional moment. The show then went off the air with the bloodline celebrating in the ring. Of course, Zayn's loyalty was called into question on this week's edition of Friday Night SmackDown on Fox, where Owens warned his longtime friend to be wary of the bloodline betraying him and implored Zayn to, quote, strike first or be burned, easy for me to say, by the bloodline. Upon being informed of the backstage conversation by Jey, Reigns confronted Zayn at Survivor Series, looking the honorary Uso in the eye and asking him if he can be trusted inside the War Game structure. In response, Zayn made it clear that Reigns taking him in as a member of the bloodline has meant the world to him, and he won't let down his Tribal Chief. After Zayn and Reigns hugged it out, the cameras caught Reigns looking suspicious, which seemed to indicate that Zayn could turn on the bloodline or the bloodline could turn on Zayn later on in the night. Fans on social media, of course, have praised the Zayn bloodline angle as one of the best storylines in modern WWE history, at least since the Triple H regime, even though it did technically start with Vince McMahon and his backstage staff, with many expecting the storyline to culminate at WrestleMania 39. It remains to be seen if Owens could be proven right about Reigns and co. eventually turning on his best friend. Now, when it comes to after Survivor Series, there was a post-show press conference, which is starting to become a bit of a staple of the Triple H era. We saw it at Clash at the Castle, we saw it at Crown Jewel, now we're seeing it at Survivor Series as well. And Sami Zayn appeared alongside Paul Heyman on behalf of the Bloodline at the Survivor Series War Games press conference. When asked if last night put an end to the rumours of dissension within the Bloodline, Zayn said, quote, when it comes to online speculation, I've heard for months and months, any day now I'm going to Sammy it up, whatever that means, and that the axe is bound to fall. I feel like I've been doubted by everyone, including the guy that is supposed to be my brother, my friend Kevin Owens. I really sincerely do hope that this is the end of that speculation and people finally see that not only have I fully accepted the bloodline, but they have fully accepted me. Going on to describe whether or not he sees himself as a second to only Roman Reigns in the bloodline, Zayn said, quote, I don't look at it in terms of a ranking system, and I actually kind of resent it, to be honest. I don't particularly care for the rank system. It's a unit. It's an act, whatever you want to call it. Everyone is so important in their role to the totality of it. As I mentioned, Zayn was really the critical and proved to be winning factor in the men's War Games match last night. So clearly, this is building here. This is cooking. This is not the end of all of this. Eventually, either the bloodline's going to turn on Sami Zayn or Sami Zayn's going to turn on the bloodline. I would think it's going to be the bloodline turning on Sami Zayn. That's what it feels like. I mean, even you can see it right there in the image, can't you guys? Look at him. Look at Jey Uso. Look at Roman Reigns. Despite Sami Zayn pledging his loyalty, they're starting to give the look. They're starting to look over to Sami Zayn as if to say, we're not sure if we can trust this guy. Or wait a minute, the heads have been turned. Jey Uso has been saying it for months. Jey Uso has been saying, this guy's not one of us. He's in the bloodline, but he's not blood. How does that work? He's an honorary Uso. Yes, you've got people like Jimmy Uso who like him. Yes, you've got people like Solo Sikoa who appear to be quite indifferent, but they like him as well. Yes, the crowd like him, but he's not blood, and that's the important part of the bloodline. So I feel like after the backstage segment on SmackDown, where you had Jey Uso see it in person, and now that Roman Reigns, despite Sami Zayn pledging his loyalty to the group, I feel like Roman Reigns now has started to see what Jey Uso sees. And these seeds of doubt are going to be continuing to be placed and placed and placed. Where it culminates, I think, is really interesting. I think Kevin Owens is going to be weaved into this. I think the fact that Kevin Owens had Roman Reigns pinned in this match is significant. I think that goes to show who Roman Reigns' next opponent for the Undisputed Universal Championship is going to be. It's going to be KO, because Kevin Owens has got a rightful claim to say, look, I didn't pin the Undisputed Universal Champion, but I had him beat. Just the same as I had him beat at the Royal Rumble in 2021, right at the beginning of Roman Reigns' Universal Championship reign, and I could have stopped this historic reign happening, just like at TLC in 2020, where I had him beat. I had him beat on several occasions, and it was always the bloodline, it was always Jey Uso, it was always Paul Heyman. They were the ones that stopped me from winning the championship, and I proved once again that I can beat Roman Reigns, and I'm going to have some kind of a match to prevent that happening. They also had a steel cage match on Christmas Day back in December 2020 as well. So I think that KO once again will be facing Roman Reigns. When that happens, there isn't an event now between now and the Royal Rumble, so maybe it is for the Royal Rumble. We'll have to wait and see. Or maybe, look, they've got a real long period of time here. They've got till the end of January. Maybe this is the Sami Zayn exit segment. Maybe this is the Sami Zayn departure from the bloodline. Maybe now this is the story. It's going to be sped up, and we're going to see Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns. I still don't know if I truly believe that Sami Zayn is going to be the one to defeat Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Universal Championship. Rumors about Cody Rhodes possibly coming back at the Royal Rumble. He's in that conversation. Bray Wyatt, he's the top merchandise seller right now in WWE, but he hasn't even had a match since returning. He's having this feud with LA Knight. So there's lots of possible candidates. I feel like, as I mentioned, this is the beginning of the end for Sami Zayn being involved in the bloodline. We still know as well, Roman Reigns versus The Rock, still rumored for WrestleMania next year. We don't know if that's going to happen. We really haven't heard anything much else since then. So again, we'll have to wait and see about that one. So my feeling right now is that either we get Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble, or maybe Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. Maybe this is the beginning of the end of all of that, but I'll have to wait and see. But of course, all of the War Games matches last night were fantastic. Not a totally newsworthy event as such. A good night of wrestling. So it's going to be interesting to see how many people did tune in, what those streaming numbers do look like on Peacock. Not that it really matters for WWE. They've already got NBC Universal's money. Anyway, speaking of the War Games matches last night, we also have the results of the Women's War Games match. This opened the show. Last night's Survivor Series War Games is the final main roster premium live event for this year in WWE, and also is the first ever War Games matches on the main roster. The event kicked off with the Women's War Games match. Team Bianca, which of course consisted of Raw Women's Champion Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, Becky Lynch, Asuka, and Mia Yim faced off against Team Damage Control, which was Bayley, WWE Women's Tag Team Champions Io Sky and Dakota Kai, Nikki Cross, and the Judgment Day's Rhea Ripley. In the end, it was the returning Becky Lynch, big time Becky Lynch, who got the pin for Team Bianca. Belair set both Sky and Kai on the table, while Lynch climbed to the top. She hit a huge leg drop from the top through the table, hitting both Sky and Kai. She won after she pinned Sky. Before Bayley could break up the pin and help her team, Belair stopped her with a KOD to the cage. Of course, Lynch was out of action recently due to a separated shoulder. She returned on this past Friday's edition of SmackDown. Lynch had suffered the injury during her match against Belair at SummerSlam on Saturday, July 30. 2 nights later, on the August 1st edition of Monday Night Raw, Lynch turned face and was attacked by Damage Control, writing her out of storylines. So again, it was a fine match. They teased a lot of stuff in it, and I'll get to that in just a second, but we also had some comments from Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch in that Survivor Series post-show press conference. Now, sharing her thoughts on who Bianca Belair would like to face at WrestleMania, Belair said in a perfect world she would want to face either Rhea Ripley or the recently absent Becky Lynch once again at WrestleMania possibly, but she also named Charlotte Flair as a perfect world opponent for WrestleMania 2. So, Bianca Belair versus Charlotte Flair, to be honest, it's one that makes a ton of sense. Basically, she was saying that she wanted to beat all 4 horsewomen in WWE. She's beaten Becky Lynch. Now she's beaten Bayley. She's beaten Sasha Banks in the main event of WrestleMania 37, Night 1. It's only really Charlotte Flair left. And I don't think that's speculation. I think that's pretty much a spoiler. I think that's a spoiler to say, I'm going to be facing Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania. And you know what it would mean? It would mean, once again, it's a WrestleMania, which means Charlotte Flair, she has to wrestle for the title, because she always does. She always wrestles for the title at WrestleMania. That's what she does. And it would appear possibly next year is going to be no different. It's going to be Bianca Belair versus Charlotte Flair. And when it comes to Becky Lynch, there are rumors that she's going to be facing against Ronda Rousey as well. Now, at the post-Survivor Series press conference as well, the aforementioned Becky Lynch admitted she was a nervous wreck performing the spot at pre-match practice, that leg drop off the top of the cage, but felt like a superhero when fans at the TD Garden in Boston gave her a rousing ovation for her act of daredevilry. Saying, quote, "Lads, I was terrified," Lynch said on her high spot Survivor Series. "No, I wasn't terrified in the moment. I was terrified getting up there in practice today. I climbed up as I wanted to see the height of it. And my palms were sweaty, knees weak, arms spaghetti." Brilliant reference, that is. "There was no vomit on my sweater already, but when you have the feeling and energy of the crowd, I feel like anything is possible. It's the people that let you feel like a superhero and make you feel like a superhero, so then you become a superhero. And God bless Dakota Kai and Io Sky. I'm sure they're feeling a lot worse than I am." So, as I mentioned, the speculation with Lynch making her return at SmackDown earlier this week, it appears that the man will be designated to the blue brand going forward, though WWE is yet to confirm that as fact. It's been widely rumored that Lynch versus SmackDown Women's Champion Ronda Rousey will be one of the marquee matches at next year's WrestleMania event in April. Just speaking briefly on Ronda Rousey and her SmackDown Women's Championship match at Survivor Series against Shotzi. I won't. We're going to talk about who's produced it in a second. But in terms of the match quality, yeah, not good. Not good. It was not pretty to watch. Austin Theory is the brand new WWE United States Champion at last night's WWE Premium Live Event Survivor Series War Games. Fans were stunned by a brand new United States Champion after a hard-fought battle between champion Seth freaking Rollins and challengers Bobby Lashley and Austin Theory. There was a shocking finish. As Rollins set up for a Falcon Arrow on Theory, Bobby Lashley speared him as Rollins dropped Theory, and he was able to capture the pinfall victory. And therefore, the new United States Champion is Austin Theory, which was certainly surprising. Seth Rollins only recently won the championship from Bobby Lashley. It was on the season premiere of Monday Night Raw. That was after Bobby Lashley was attacked, of course, by Brock Lesnar. Austin Theory had recently attempted to cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase on Seth Rollins, unfortunately failing, even though it wasn't a world championship. It was quite bizarre. But now Austin Theory got what he wanted without cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase. Now, Triple H also commented on this in the press conference, kind of hitting out and hitting back at some of the criticisms of him and his booking of Austin Theory recently. Clearly using a sarcastic, albeit flat tone, Triple H described the new United States Champion Austin Theory. He said, quote, "I also want to make mention of new US Champion Austin Theory. Unfortunately for him, his career was dead 2 weeks ago, and now it's resurrected. So that's a pretty good feat for him. He's going to walk on water next. I think it will be good. Triple H, of course, is clearly referencing the pure pandemonium that broke out after Austin Theory attempted to cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase on Seth Rollins on a recent episode of Raw, proving to be unsuccessful. Fans and pundits alike speculated that Theory had been, quote, buried by the new Triple H regime. It seems that, according to Paul Levesque himself, not so much. When it comes to this, I was surprised by the outcome. I still believe, and I still do think, they could have got to this without having the way that the Money in the Bank cash-in happened. I understand, and this is an example of what happens in regime change, in that you have to kind of finish the stories that weren't started by you. As the Jim Cornette reference, you're having to finish someone else's murder mystery, and it's a case of, what were they supposed to do? This guy had been given the Money in the Bank briefcase, but at the same time, there are no plans for him to defeat Roman Reigns for that title. But you still could say, in my opinion, what's going to happen between now and when was it? June, that he won that briefcase. There was still plenty of time, and the belts might be split by then, and he could go after the WWE Championship. I also understand that they wanted to see a more serious, more aggressive side of Austin Theory, dropping the selfie phone and being more serious, being more aggressive. Okay, again, was that at the extent of necessarily having to have that weird cash-in? But at the same time, he's the US champion now. Less people are talking about that cash-in, so ultimately, it's proved out to work, I think, for Triple H. You would give him credit for that, and I don't know if this is a reaction to say this was always the plan, or a case of, no, okay, well, in reaction, we'll give him the belt. I don't know. But Austin Theory is the new US champion. Speaking of Triple H, as I mentioned, he spoke extensively at the Survivor Series post-show press conference last night, and one of the questions at this press conference was, is War Games, easy for me to say, is War Games set to become an annual affair at Survivor Series? Well, speaking at the post-Survivor Series presser, WWE Chief Content Officer Triple H was asked if fans can expect to see superstars going to war inside the dual cage structure every November, a tradition that WCW upheld every September as part of the Full Brawl pay-per-view and the early mid-90s. He said, quote, I think we'll see. I think it worked out incredibly well tonight. We're in the process of looking at the overall year-to-year calendar and seeing where things end up, but I believe tonight was very successful, so it makes me feel positive about it. We'll see where the future takes us. Now, when asked if War Games could be featured at other premium live events besides Survivor Series, the game acknowledged recent reports that WWE could do away with gimmick-based premium live events such as Money in the Bank, Hell in a Cell, etc. Quote, it could be, Triple H said, hinting at more War Games matches across a calendar year. For example, with Hell in a Cell stepping away, there was a feeling that Hell in a Cell is one of those things that is a giant blow-off. If you're calling somebody out at the end of something, you can challenge them to Hell in a Cell. So I hear this speculation among fans about Hell in a Cell, Money in the Bank, Elimination Chamber. Maybe those things should go away. Some of that I hear. Hell in a Cell, I hear it. I had a highlight of my career in Sorter, Foley and I calling each other out on Hell in a Cell. But then when you get into Elimination Chamber, nobody is going to go, I challenge you to an Elimination Chamber match with 5 other guys. It doesn't work, right? Same thing, I challenge you to Money in the Bank. There's a difference there. I think we have to reevaluate all of it. We have to look at that. And it's really about looking at the overall calendar and saying, what is the best place to put this? What is the best way to entertain our fans? What makes the most sense? It's no different when you look at a show and go, okay, this match has to deliver, but it can't take away from the rest of the show. It's all about the whole arcing story of what we're doing right now, and then it's a whole year of what we put out. Altogether, there are so many layers to what we do. You have to keep in mind all of those, and we'll do that moving forward. But it's still up in the air. It's something we think about on a regular basis. While Hell in a Cell is set to be discontinued starting in 2023, Elimination Chamber will continue per usual as a February event, with next year's show taking place in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. There's still no confirmation on the date or location of the 2023 Money in the Bank event, though. And it's really interesting to hear what he says there. I partially agree, I partially disagree. I think he's absolutely right on the Hell in a Cell thing. That needed to be taken away from an event. You can challenge someone to Hell in a Cell match. I think he's slightly wrong with Elimination Chamber. Yes, it's a case of, you don't challenge someone to Elimination Chamber match, but there's creative ways of doing it. I remember, for instance, SummerSlam 2003 is a great example of it, whereby it was a case of, you had sort of 3 feuds going on at the time. You had Goldberg, Triple H, you had Randy Orton, who was involved in that sort of feud with Evolution. You had, I think it was Chris Jericho versus Kevin Nash, that was involved in there as well. And I believe there was someone else put in there, I forget. Shawn Michaels was in there as well. And he was involved in sort of the Triple H feud. You can merge feuds together and say, this is all getting out of control. Elimination Chamber match, and people are like, whoa, I didn't see that coming, that was incredible. And I just think it's been overdone. What WWE have done, they've looked at these matches that are popular and say, right, we're going to make it, because those matches are popular and because they draw, they're going to have their own pay-per-view and people know when they're coming. But I think the issue is that the reason those matches were popular is because you didn't know when they were coming. And when they did come up, you went, oh, it's amazing, I've got to tune in because these don't happen that often. When you know exactly when the match is going to happen, it loses the buzz. Oh, next month's TLC, there's going to be a TLC match. I like TLC matches, but I like it when they were rarer. I like it when they meant something. And you kind of lose the allure of it. And it's the same, as I mentioned, for Hell in a Cell and even Money in the Bank. You know, Money in the Bank matches are great, but there was just something about it being at WrestleMania, as WrestleMania was the culmination of a year's worth of storytelling, and the Money in the Bank match was a hint at the next year of what's to come. This time next year, this person could be the world champion at next year's WrestleMania. This is where we're going for the next 12 months, and I really like that aspect of it. I also understand the business side of it as well, which is basically, look, these matches draw, we've got tickets to sell, and we've got people, we want people to subscribe to Peacock, or we want people to subscribe to the network around the world. So I understand those parts of it as well. Now, last night, this is a controversial, very controversial return to WWE, and it's none other than former WWE Cruiserweight Champion Brian Kendrick, who made his WWE return backstage at Survivor Series War Games. Despite having 5 matches on the main show, the November 26th Premium Live event had a stacked card. In addition to the 2 War Games matches, a big singles match and 2 title bouts took place. One of the title bouts saw Shotzi challenge for Ronda Rousey's SmackDown Women's Championship, and as per Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, Jason Jordan and a returning Brian Kendrick were listed as producers for the match. During Kendrick's previous WWE run, the wrestling veteran transitioned into a backstage producer role in October of 2020. Kendrick announced his in-ring return in December 2021 as he faced, as the former Cruiserweight champion, it was scheduled to face Harlan Parker Boudreaux on NXT TV in January. However, the bout ultimately didn't happen. After asking for his release, Kendrick was granted his release on February 1st. Later that day, it was announced that Kendrick would be making his AEW debut against Jon Moxley on the February 2nd edition of Dynamite. But this is where it gets very controversial. The former WWE star was pulled from the show's lineup after clips of Kendrick discussing conspiracy theories related to very anti-Semitic theories around a decade ago resurfaced ahead of his appearance. It's currently unclear whether Brian Kendrick is with WWE full-time or on a trial basis. However, the fact he worked on a title match on a highly anticipated premium live event indicates he may have a full deal with the company. This is very surprising. I know that this happened earlier this year, and people can talk about second chances, and his comments were a decade ago, and he apologized. But the comments that he was talking about were incredibly alarming and incredibly offensive. Very, very offensive, and at the time, I didn't blame AEW for pulling him from the event. It was again, the comments were horrific. Now, as I mentioned, he did apologize and say that those weren't his beliefs and they were from a decade ago. So some people may argue second chances, but it's a very loaded topic, and certainly I'm surprised, WWE being a publicly traded company, that they would bring someone back with all of that baggage, considering the incident itself wasn't even, or the discovery of the incident itself was less than a year ago. That to me is quite surprising. Finally, last night, did WWE tease the return of Tegan Nox to the company? Michael Cole on commentary, serving as somewhat of an expanded professional wrestling historian since the retirement of Vince McMahon, added some more unthought references to his list that he's been doing in recent weeks. During the opening moments of the Women's War Games match, Michael Cole referenced release star Tegan Nox during a reference to Dakota Kai's history in the War Games match. Of course, this may have just been a relevant callback to the history of the match, but Nox is certainly one of the names near the top of people's list for a potential return, and it was a very pronounced mention from Michael Cole. Of course, it's been recently reported that WWE is interested or has had talks about bringing Nox back to the company. Again, whether it was just a reference, whether it was a hint, we'll have to wait and see. But there you go, guys. That's the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.